common reed, giant reed, ditch reed. These are all different names of what we have here, but here in Wisconsin we oftentimes refer to this plant by its scientific genus name, which is Phragmites. Now here in the state we have 3 different kinds of invasive Phragmites and 1 different kind of native species of Phragmites as well. But the invasive kind is a perennial wetland grass, and it grows anywhere from 3 to 20 feet tall. It has slightly ridged, stiff, and hollow stems, and it creates dense clones that are still visible year-round, even in the winter. So it is both a prohibited and a restricted species here in the state. And that prohibited versus restricted has to do with a DNR classification, a legal classification that has to do with how prevalent the species is here in the state. And for Phragmites, you can pretty much draw a line right down the middle of the state of Wisconsin. And on the western side of the state, it is known as prohibited, and on the eastern half of the state, it's known as restricted. So here in Portage County, it's actually known as a restricted species. And what restricted means is that the species is already prevalent in the area that you're referring to. So it's very easy to find, and it's already pretty much so in this area to the point where you're not going to be able to get rid of it. It's so well established that it's going to be next to impossible to remove, and that's why it's known as restricted here in this county. Now on the western half of the state, it's known as prohibited, and that means that it's not already there. It might be there in some areas, but it's going to be in very small numbers. And that is when any invasive species really is the easiest to control, is when it's not highly prevalent and well established in a given site. And so that's why on the western half of Wisconsin, it's very important that we don't accidentally introduce this species, because it's not already there and we want to try and keep it that way. Now, the Phragmites plant, I already said it's a wetland grass, but it prefers any type of saturated site, so anywhere from lake shores to riverbanks, and especially areas behind large compost piles or areas behind abandoned retail stores. Now, these sites are also known as disturbed sites, or sites that were affected or lands that were changed in some ways due to human activity. And Phragmites is especially good at invading sites that were invaded or that were disturbed by humans. They're very good at invading disturbed sites. Now, Phragmites has rhizomes, and these rhizomes go underground, or they spread underground, I should say, and that is how Phragmites is able to spread and invade a site so quickly. And these rhizomes also help the plant to recover from any type of removal effort that you might try. So things like mowing or grazing or even burning, the rhizomes really help the plant to recover well from that, and that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to get rid of once it's there. Now, the plant is problematic because it alters wetland hydrology due to the fact that it takes up such a large amount of water. It also alters wildlife habitat in that it creates a dense monoculture, which makes it harder for them to find food. Many plant-eating species that might have relied on certain native plants would no longer be able to eat them or use them due to the fact that there would only be Phragmites once Phragmites is in place. And this is because Phragmites also shades out native species of plants due to the fact that it grows so tall and so fast. Now, Phragmites can spread in a number of ways. One of the ways is actually through root fragmentation. It can also spread from long runners above the ground, and also from wind-blown seeds and from even cut stem fragments, so it can spread in a lot of different ways. And there's a few different theories as to how Phragmites got introduced here in Wisconsin, but we're not really sure which one it is. A couple of the more commonly thought of theories is that either it was introduced from landscaping or from early shipping procedures. So early in the days of shipping goods from like Europe to the United States, they would often use ballast soil, or soil for ballast on ships. So they would load up the soil on the ship, and they would come from usually Europe to America, and then they would dump that soil on the shoreline of America. And that soil had all sorts of different kinds of seeds in it, from plants that already weren't here in the United States. And so that's how we got a lot of our different types of invasive species of plants that we have here today. Now, there are a few different control methods for trying to get rid of Phragmites, although none of them have really proven to be all that effective once the plant is well established. One of them is burning. but burning again only works temporarily due to those rhizomes that stay underground. You can also try mowing the grass, although this often creates problems with spreading of the seeds. So if you're going to mow it, it's important to at least try and do it during the time of year when the seeds aren't going to be mature and able to reproduce when you'd be accidentally spreading the seeds. You can also try chemical forms of removal, and that's going to be where you use an herbicide and spray that on the plant to kill it. Oftentimes what people will do is they will cut down the grass first and then apply herbicide afterwards, and that's probably right now the most effective way that they've found out of any of them for trying to control the species. Some have also tried biological methods of removal, although there really needs to be more research done with this at first due to the fact that that might involve introducing a new species, and that could end up becoming invasive, and we don't want to introduce a new invasive species just to get rid of a new one. And as you can see here, this plant is very tall. I don't want to make too much of a mess, but I'll just kind of pull one of these out of my bouquet of Phragmites here. So you can see just how tall it would really be. It's kind of bent up down there still, but it'd be up against the ceiling if I pulled it out anymore. But I mean, that's really how tall these plants are. So they're very recognizable. When you find them out in the wild, and it's going to be just a dense monoculture of these plants that's going to look like it goes on just for miles. So very recognizable in the wild. All right, well, thank you for listening to me talk about Phragmites today.